about focusing on theater artists who have chosen to make the Berkshires their home, and why they have chosen to be creative people in this environment, and where they were before, and what is it that we're doing here anyway. All the people on this stage are really core members of our artistic community at Great Barrington Public Theater, and it's really sweet to have them all here together, and they do all different sorts of things. So I'm going to just introduce you to them, but we're not going to do the lengthy introduction that we've had at the other conversations with, because we want to have a little time to talk, and there are many of them. So I'm going to refer you to your program, where there are bios for all of them that you can take a look at later. So first we have Brittney Belz, who is a wonderful costume designer who's worked for the theater quite a bit. Then we have Jessica Provenz, and she is a wonderful playwright and also works for the Barrington Stage Company. Anne Undeland, also we have three, because we are Playwrights Theater, three playwrights. Yes. Anne Undeland, a wonderful playwright. Mark St. Germain, another wonderful, fabulous playwright. Peggy Pharr Wilson, who you may have seen in some productions on our stages. Matthew Adelson, who is a lighting designer. James Warwick, who is a wonderful director. And who is that at the end? Jim Frangione, some tawdry artistic director of our theater company.
I'm the chair mover.
Right. So I want to look at my notes a little bit. So theater, for those of you who are not theater practitioners, is a very, very collaborative art form. We can't exist without one another. A play can't exist without a director, actors, a set of designers, and stage management, and backstage folks, and everybody is essential to the making of a piece of theater. So it's really exciting to have all these very different sorts of people on the stage together to talk a little bit about what they do. We have a couple of different ways at this, and I think I want to start by asking you each to say what you do in the theater. I don't want to know.
How dare you?
How long you've been doing it, and how long you've been doing it in the Berkshires, and if you want, where you were before that. So, what you do.
Oh, great, I get to start.
Yeah.
I'm a costume designer, so I don't usually be on stage. When I go on stage, it actually means something has gone very wrong. So I do costume design and also technology, which is building things. I'm also the department chair and production manager at Union College in Schenectady, so technically I'm Capital Region, but they let me come play over here. What was I saying?
How long have you been doing what you've been
just
doing?
forever.
Yeah.
So I started doing actually costume work when I was 14, and I've been doing it consistently since then, wow. So a long time. And I came to Berkshires for the first time when I worked at Williams College directly out of graduate school, so that was in 2008. And so I've been working in and out of the Berkshires since about then. Even after going over to the Capital Region, I still come back.
Nice. We're so glad you did.
Sure.
Jessica.
I'm Jessica Provenz. I'm a playwright. I found playwriting in college, so I was about 20 when I first started doing that. I've been in the Berkshires for 12 years, and before that I was in New York. I'm also the Director of Development at Barrington Stage, and I've been doing that for 6 years. Okay. Did I cover it all?
I think so.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm Anne Undeland, and I'm really mainly a playwright, but also an actor. I was an actor in the Berkshires really since the 90s, but only started playwriting about 6 years ago. So it's this new and tremendously exciting adventure for me. I moved to the Berkshires before the flood, and before that I lived in Paris studying art restoration.
Very nice.
That's way better.
I know, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Mark St. Germain, I'm a writer, and I have been doing this since I was 30, so that's 39 years. And I've been coming to Berkshire since Barrington Stage was founded. And
Which is 30 years.
Which is 30 years.
Wow.
And I've been coming usually every summer. And about 8 years ago, I moved here permanently.
Yay.
Awesome. And where were you before?
Oh, before I was in Pound Ridge, New York.
Okay. Peggy.
I'm Peggy Pharr Wilson. I'm an actor, and Tristan and he's not in here. We moved here 16 years ago.
Tristan is our managing director
Yeah.
at Great Barrington.
And we moved here 16 years ago, and before, we've lived a very peripatetic life. We have moved 7 times to follow jobs, So we've been here for 16 years, and I'm an artistic associate with Barrington Stage, and I've done 3 shows for the public. And what else am I supposed to say?
That's good.
That's good.
Okay, Matthew.
Hi, I'm Matthew Adelson. I'm a lighting designer, and I've worked in the Berkshires since I was an intern at the Williamstown Theater Festival in 1991. Wow. And I've designed in the Berkshires since 97 or 98, if I remember correctly. My family and I moved up here in 2005 to work at the Mahawi, and I was the director of production at the Mahawi from 2005 to 2014. So I'm a lighting designer. I also am the production manager and the faculty for 5 College Dance, which is the dance departments of Amherst, Hampshire, Mount Holyoke, Smith, and UMass Amherst. So I live just down the street here, but I work in Northampton and Amherst a lot with their dance departments. And I've designed for, I think, every company in the Berkshires, primarily Berkshire Theater Group. I've done 30 productions for them.
And James Warwick. Speak.
I know it's hard to believe, but and I look weeks younger, but I've been doing this for 57 years. And, that was when I left drama school in London, and was an actor, working actor for about 30 years. Then I came here to do some publicity for a television series I did, and then I was asked to do some work in Los Angeles first, then New York, and I found myself here exactly 25 years ago at the Berkshire Theatre Festival. And I've had now 3 homes in the Berkshires, and every time I'm tempted to go away, I come back. And it's because of the work, the community, the air, and I feel at peace. Yeah.
Thank you. And last but not least, Jim.
Jim Frangione. I started out as an actor in New York for about 35 years, working all over the city, off-Broadway, Broadway, and also all around the country. I traveled quite a bit. And then in about a little more than 20 years ago, I met my wife, Anne, who teaches at Simon's Rock, and drafted me up to the Berkshires, where I came and found this wonderful place. But before I did, I started. I was an audiobook narrator, and still am, and that's kind of my day job, which is a wonderful way to continue my life as an actor through storytelling. And I love doing that. I have a studio at my house, and I work for all the publishers, and that's a really fulfilling aspect of my life. But the theater, Great Barrington Public Theater, is also a really fulfilling venture in my life. Yeah, great.
Awesome. I want to know, James started talking about this a little bit, but what's so good about being here? What do you like about being in the Berkshires, and what sort of induced you to make a home here or nearby?
We're going in order again?
No, we don't need to. I'm not going to put that kind of pressure on you.
I rented recently, December and January, in New York City because I was thinking of possibly relocating. And I found I would start thinking of excuses to come back. Yeah. And so I ended up spending as much time still up here as I did in New York. And I realized this is the place to be. There's just a relaxed atmosphere to work that the energy in New York, which is wonderful, but I know I couldn't do it 7 days a week. So.
Mm-hmm. Other thoughts on that? Why the South Berkshires?
This weekend I was in Vermont, and I met somebody and I said, I'm a playwright, and they said, where are you a playwright? And I said, I live in the Berkshires, and they said, that sounds like the perfect place to be a playwright. And I was like, oh, I'm going to say that on the panel, because that sounds appropriate. But I think that the Berkshires is not just great for theater making, but great in so many ways, because if you have a skill and a talent and drive and show up to things, then people will invite you to the table. And I think that, like, no matter what your field is, simply by, like, it's not so big. And so I think if you put it out there in the Berkshires, in the universe here, I think people start to see you, as a playwright, as a costume designer, and they invite you to be part of the conversation. And that's been my experience here.
It's an extremely loyal audience that comes to everything. Especially in the summertime when everybody's up and running, people are 7 nights a week are out seeing everything. You cannot be bored up here. There's just so much between the museums and the theaters and the dance and the music. It's alive with art. You can't get away from it.
And it's unique, isn't it? I mean, I don't know, I've been around a bit, and I don't know anywhere else in the world like the Berkshires. I mean, 6 producing theatres within an hour of the house in South Egremont. And then if you go another half hour, Capital Rep, which I was visiting at the weekend, there's the Majestic in Westbury. There are all these other peripheral theatres as well. And of course Tanglewood and Jacob's Pillar. There's nowhere else like in the world. It's an extraordinary place, a gathering.
And it's an interesting combination of very rural, beautiful air, but also this incredible concentration of humans doing theatrical work. And I find, that the level of the work here is really high. And the people working here in theater is really high. So it's constantly inspiring me, but it's also a really welcoming thing as well. So I think it's a great place to be.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think I lived most of my life in New York City before coming up here, and we certainly moved up here because our children needed something called a bedroom, and which served them very well. I think having a bedroom, they're doing great, and
We're grateful to you.
it was great, and they wouldn't have to sit underneath me while I was drafting, so I think that was really super. But I think that the quality of life up here is really great. Mm-hmm. And I really like working in New York, but I honestly don't really miss living there. I like working in New York and doing a show there, but it's really great living here. And I think the only place that I've been that's really comparable to this in the United States, I think a little bit, is Santa Fe, which I think is somewhat similar to this, although there's actually more going on here, I think. But I think that you can have a quality of life. It used to be, for what I do, you really could only live somewhere where FedEx would deliver that day. And now, of course, I haven't sent anything in FedEx in like 7 years. So, I can really do anything here that I could do living in New York. So.
Anybody else want to weigh in on that?
Well, I would just say that I think it is the really supportive area, both with audiences, but also just the number of artists that are around in the Berkshires of all kinds. Like, it's playwrights and designers, but also just, sculptors and writers. And just there is so much art going on in this area that it creates, again, very supportive audiences, both the people who come to the Berkshires to vacation and tourists here, but also just the people who are living here. And I find that, artists can be very supportive of each other's art, and it has the best of that in this area. So.
Yeah, agreed. I'm wondering, since we are in such a collaborative art form, and I guess that rises to the top for me in terms of why I love being in the theater. I'm wondering what you value in a collaborator, or a series of collaborators, a group of collaborators, and have you found that here in particular situations? And you can invoke a play if you want to want to give a specific. Anybody have some thoughts about? What do you think?
I love the collaborative nature of the Berkshires, and I think that everybody, there was a time, I think maybe 10 or 15 years ago, when actors didn't work at other theaters. They worked in one theater, and I'm not sure what the reason was, but now I think everybody's moving to other theaters. We have actors and directors and designers who work for everybody up here, and there's something about the fact that everybody works with each other on various projects that's very heartening and special to the Berkshires. I enjoy that.
Well, that's what I think the public theater is being done up here, because I remember the first conversation I ever had with you was I was complaining that when we moved up here, I was like, oh, there's 5 theaters, I'm going to work. But it's very, you get, oh, you're a Shakes & Co. actor, or you're a Barrington stage actor, or you're and you don't kind of get to work in all the theaters. It's still that way. And that's what I love about the public, is you get to work with people from every place and say, why aren't we working together all the time? So I still think there's a bit of a divide with the theaters over here, and I cannot for the life of me figure out why. I don't know why everybody isn't working everywhere, because the talent pool up here is enormous. And I want to work with everybody.
What else?
Well, my playwriting is I'm fairly new to it, and I worked really closely with Jim on my first play and really closely with you on my second play. And what do I look for in a collaborator? I look for gentle honesty. But the honesty is really important. And I found that in both Judy and Jim, it's sort of interesting, you're on both sides of the stage, sort of bookending, is that the two of you had this beautiful way of kind of fostering the work and kind of midwifing the work forward. And I know I'm not unique. I know you do this with others, and I hope that we all do this for each other in various ways. But I think it's the reason that I think the playwriting has kind of happened for me when I'm relatively inexperienced at it. It's only been 6 years.
Awesome.
The thing that I like doing the least really is talking about lighting, actually. And that I find it very reductive in terms of what I do, because it's a lot of math, and lighting is completely invisible till it hits anything. And I worked with Judy last year on this incredible play here, and what I like working with the director that way is I want to talk about the play and the people, and why are we doing this show now, and who are these people, and what is the space, and why are they going here, and what are they doing, and what is this about? And that sort of answers the questions of what the lighting is. To actually have a conversation about the lighting is about as interesting as the dairy aisle at the Big Y. So I enjoy working with people here where we talk about the real important issue of whatever the piece is, and it can be a play or a musical or a dance piece or whatever. But I find here, somehow the people I work with here, I can have those kind of conversations about the shows that I'm working on, and not about, I will figure out the lighting. That's why I have a fancy MFA, and but I don't want to talk to the director about the lighting, really, frankly.
Good to know.
But there's a after, I don't want to knock New York, but when you're in New York and you're working in the theater in New York, there are a lot of personalities, and strong personalities, and egos that have to be massaged and so forth. And so it's really refreshing to work with people who are really kind and really nice, and treat each other really well, and are kind to each other. And that is a quality that you just cannot put a price on. And that is, I think, all of these people are part of that team.
I definitely agree with that. When because I'm kind of bouncing back and forth, and I'll do things over in other places and then come back here, and anytime that I see a list of the names of a lot of the people that are on the stage and a lot of others that are around the area, it's always great to see their names on it. You just have this feeling of oh, okay, this is gonna be a good show. It's not just a show that I have to do. It's oh my gosh, I gotta survive this one. It's this is these people fine. And it's just really nice as a designer because we don't often, all the time be able to get to pick our shows or pick our teams or things like that. You just got to take the job. So that's really nice. Every time that I've worked in the Berkshires, it's always been a delightful experience.
Yeah, I'm just going to add some things that have been said about the theater that you started, and I think my sense of why you started it was to create a place for people in the Berkshires to get their voices out in different ways. And so, like Jim, I think you're like super kind, and so thank you for creating a home for so many artists. And Judy, thanks for being the right hand for a recent number of years. The other thought I had about collaborators, actually going back to the kind piece, is I had just finished a new play, and the two of you have been very supportive of like, how's the play going? Like, what like gentle nudging for the. I said it would be done in October, but like here we are, and I have a draft. And when I think about like that first read and the first audience and who I want to hear it, I was like, oh, I would love to have you in the room. To be what was the phrase you used?
Gentle honesty.
Yes, that's what I would like. So anyway, and in terms of collaborators, or just people that I gravitate, I love to be in a room with people that I think can up my game. People who can challenge me, who are doing great work, and I can hopefully rise to the occasion of meeting them.
Yeah.
So I'm going to answer the question a little bit, if I may, because I want to talk about Brittney and Matthew, because I've worked with both of them on different projects. And Brittney designed costumes for Mr. Fullerton, that is Anne's play about Edith Wharton and her very first love affair, her first and only love affair when she was 46. And she wrote this play where Edith and Mr. Fullerton needed to be fully clothed and then fully undressed, and then fully clothed and fully undressed, and fully unclothed and fully undressed. This is like one scene after the other, okay? So my friend Brittney figured out how that might work in terms of costuming, and that, as far as I can see, saved the production, because there was just no way to do it. How do you have somebody in a corset and bloomers, and then in a full, 1909 ladies get up in 2 seconds? How do you make that happen? And Brittney figured out how to make that happen, and it was like butter, It just went.
After 2 days of the stage manager going, run it again, but faster.
Yeah, right, exactly. And just to give you an example with Matthew, we worked on this play called Things I Know to Be True, and the sort of the crazy thing about that play is it kept changing season. The season changed, and did we go through a whole year or something? Yeah. And it was very important that everything changed. The look of everything on stage changed because of the season we were in, because the season was connected to what was going on in the script. And Matthew, in his magicalness, figured out, along with our scenic designer, Juliana, how to make the world change from summer to fall to winter to spring to summer. And that was like a magicalness that happens in collaboration, not because I'm saying, can you make that light look different, but because the play demanded that we really needed to live fully in the aura of those seasons. And so that was a
and that's what we talked about.
Experience.
And that's what we talked about with Juliana about the show. So we didn't talk about the lighting, actually. We talked about how the space would change and how the arc of the seasons would change from scene to scene in that play. Absolutely.
Right. So those are my...
But that show, if I can just add, that show, Things I Know to Be True, which was in the summer of, the end of the summer of 2021, was the biggest thing we at Great Barrington Public Theater had ever attempted. It was a huge project. It was a big 6-person cast. It was a big design element. And of course, the 6 actors arrived, and within a week, 4 of them had tested positive for COVID. No. And at that point, Actors Equity Association, which has since diminished their rules, required that every actor that tested positive remain out of rehearsal until they tested negative for 3 days, which meant this whole production was almost going to fail before it had even started. However, due to our stage management and our director, Judy, everybody was worked in, zoomed in, kept in the loop, and through the magic of, I don't know, theater, technology, a mixture of both, made it work in such a way that I remember in one of the technical rehearsals, I stepped in on stage, and one of the ASM was holding an actor on an iPad. So the stage manager was walking around the stage doing the blocking, and the actor was saying the lines with the other actors, and my head almost exploded. And I thought, this is just amazing to see the collaboration of everybody making it work under duress. Was a phenomenal success, and that show was saved, and it was one of our, if not our most successful show.
And the performers on that were so generous and genuine with each other to be able to do that too, because they also hadn't performed with the person who was out the whole time, and the wardrobe crew and everybody. So when they did come back, they were trying to perform for the first time pretty much with an audience, never having even walked on the stage hardly at all before. So every single person was like helping to go, okay, now you go over here, okay, your clothes are here, they're changing to that one. Like, it was, but everybody was really working together to make that show happen in a way, like, you want to talk about collaboration, like that was peak collaboration.
Yeah, and truthfully, the actor who played the father, we didn't see his whole face on stage for the first 3 performances, and when he was finally cleared to take off his mask, everybody was like gobsmacked because we hadn't seen his whole face on stage ever. And so it was crazy. But
I know it's gonna be.
you know, as they say in Shakespeare in Love, it's a mystery. It happened.
Yeah.
It happened. Yeah, go.
One of the playwrights I worked with quite a lot in England was Tom Stoppard, and he said that the natural business of theatre is a road of infinite obstacles to imminent disaster. Strangely enough, it all turns out, well, it's a mystery. And that's actually what he said to me after a matinee enrichment of The Real Thing. However, we won't get into that now.
Okay. All right, here's another question for you. What do you think are the challenges of creating theater in the Berkshires? What's difficult in this community? What are we bumping up against that maybe you have some ideas about how to fix? Any thoughts about that?
I mean, I have a thought, which is when I'm in New York City and I walk down the street, like quite literally, my whole body changes. Like I'm like there's an energy and a drive, and I feel like there's tons of inspiration everywhere. I often go home from seeing a show in New York and just want to create something myself. And I think the Berkshires has so much to offer, and yet I do not have that experience here, that sense of like, just this sort of creative force outside there is a comfort and maybe even a kindness to the Berkshires, which is lovely, but it is a different kind of energy, and it's one that I struggle with.
Gotcha. Okay.
I mean, all the theatres are obliged by equity to hold auditions. I know Shakespearean Company did theirs with the equity candidates, members of equity. Today, all day, they saw about 100, how many people there? A lot of people. And there are, some parts not cast yet, and every theatre around here has a casting session for equity members and non-equity. They're obliged to do so. And people are joining this community as it grows, as it expands. So the pool of actors certainly grows and expands as well. And I think that's just terrific. Bringing fresh blood in all the time is what keeps it alive.
Yeah. I know also during the pandemic, some people just relocated to this area and this community grew.
Yeah.
So that's yes. Wonderful, yeah.
But I hear what Jessica's saying about the lack of the you know, it's not a city, and that's both wonderful and not. I mean, just literally the distances, you know, I live 45 minutes away, so it's not like you can just sort of hop down the street. And I've long thought that it would be wonderful if there could be some sort of like a passport system, where if you were a working artist in any discipline, you could either get radically reduced tickets or free tickets to any museum, concert, play, but like something that would have all the artists, you know, there. And maybe there could be some granting organization that would fund this so that theaters aren't losing out on giving free tickets or whatnot. But to foster the artists even more, and to help us financially, because it's not a lucrative profession. So, you know, I'm finding that I know it's amazing, but I find I'm like constantly doing the Berkshires shuffle, you know, this job and that job and this job and that job, so that I can have time to be a playwright. And I wish that there were ways of making, like the passport idea is something that I think would be really great.
The Dramatists Guild does something with members that, for a limited amount of off-Broadway theaters, that if you show your card and they have seats, they'll let you sit. But it's limited.
The United States does it.
Yeah.
I forget what it's called, but theaters around the country do it as well.
Yeah, but theaters and museums and like I like the idea of the cross-pollination.
Yes.
Playwrights Mark
Oh, that's the name of the program?
Yeah.
and the Dramatists Guild.
Oh,
Okay.
In Barrington stage.
Barrington does it, yeah. Really?
Well, not after
you go.
tonight.
You got it.
No, I have no power. I'm just saying things.
What else? Anything else coming to
Well,
your
actually,
mind?
that kind of brings up like for me, it's actually a little bit hard to do theater, or actually to see theater, much less sometimes to actually arrange theater, because theaters like to do all their shows at the same time, which is delightful if you want to go to a show every night for a week or something, like, you know, see 5 shows in a weekend. That's really great. But especially if you're working on any other theater, I don't know how you see anything around here, because by the time that I go to this technical rehearsal and that one and go back and forth, the time to actually just see other people's, or even to try to work at multiple theaters, becomes limited as a designer at least. So sometimes the scheduling is one of my biggest issues.
Yeah, especially with family and all of that. Yeah, yeah.
I have one other thought about the location, which is I think as people, our strengths are our weaknesses, and I think as places too. So I think the Berkshires, the strength and the weaknesses are like flip sides. So what the Berkshires has to offer in terms of artists, like when I'm writing a play, and I'm just the other day I was like, okay, I need a 23-year-old guy to read this part. Okay, I know the one. Like there's the one in the Berkshires that will do it, and that's great because like I know him, and I think that's a great advantage of like, okay, I need a costume designer. Who is there? You know, and it becomes a very short list of like people with excellence that you'd want to work with, and on the flip side, you know, it was what I said earlier.
Yeah, something that we've been talking about a little bit is there are a lot of cities or areas in the country that have unified auditions. League of Chicago Theaters, Theater Bay Area, Stage Source in Boston has Boston area auditions. And if we were thinking it would be great if the Berkshires did that, so every theater company didn't have to do a separate one, and we could really, you know, it's kind of kind to bring everybody's energies into this, you know, like, so you have auditions in here and then callbacks in these other rooms or something like that. That we thought it would be really cool to try and figure out how to do that around here.
Yeah, and another challenge I think we face in the Berkshires is the lack of diversity in casting diverse roles, and we don't have the, you know, housing in the Berkshires is a crucible. At least it is for our little theater, Great Barrington Public Theater. Housing is difficult to find, and you would have to bring in actors from elsewhere, and so that's a big challenge. I think it's getting better in the Berkshires. I think more people of color and diverse backgrounds are moving into the Berkshires, and that's a great thing for the theater up here.
Yeah, and if anybody is interested in donating housing to Great Barrington Public Theater, if you have a little apartment.
Yeah. And like I think it was Brittney said, in a small window of 10 weeks, everybody's producing their season of plays, and it's difficult. I think everybody when you have a benefit, you have to go to the nonprofit center for the Berkshires and check what whose benefit is on this night, because you don't want to have a benefit on the same night as Jacob's Pillow, or else you'd be dead. So you have to play it very carefully and figure out who's doing what and where.
Now, if all the theaters got together and bought an apartment building,
Yeah,
that would help
great.
a lot because it's a huge problem, Barrington Stage, but every theater.
Yeah.
So, and then let it out during the winter for skiers.
I think there's a lot of opportunities for collaboration. That you mentioned auditions, but I think like could one share could they share marketing resources? How are I think there are probably many ways that the theaters could really have each other's backs and collaborate.
Yeah, I know in Boston there's also recently opened a big, huge prop storage place where you can rent props. The theaters, any theaters who kind of pay a little fee can rent props there, and it makes it so much easier than hunting from scratch. It's just kind of the communal approach really works in these situations, I think.
Yeah. There is a shortage. I mean, it can be easy to forget that this is a rural area, and you want to pretend that it's Brooklyn, but it's not. And there is a real shortage here of people who work in the production crafts and trades, and that is a real issue. I mean, I'm a designer. I don't hang the lights, and there is a real shortage of people who work in the production crafts and trades here, and sometimes for the company to hire the electricians, you need to put the show in, or the carpenters to put the show in. It's not even an issue of the money, it's finding the people who can do it and who are available to do it. And that, I don't really know what the answer, it's a tough thing because it's very expensive to live up here. You do have to drive everywhere. There's no, there's no, 2 train to get on. And also, there's a lot of work, but there's a lot of work at the same time, but not a lot of work all year. So it's a big challenge, but that's a big thing I know just for myself, for other people who work in production and other designers up here. Having the skilled people to do the craft work is certainly an issue. And I like I said, I don't know what the real solution is, but it's definitely a thing that you face. The more companies that do more shows, the more people you really need. But there's a limit to who's up here to do it, or people who are only seasonally.
Yeah, you need a really big apartment building.
You do,
You
yeah.
have the tech and design wing and the acting wing. Sorry. Why don't we open it up for questions? Is there anything that you're curious about?
Yes. As someone who's an actor in the area, who's had a really hard time getting my foot in the door, and I find that I'm on backstage. You guys do a really good job of publicizing your auditions on Facebook and things like that. But I always find out the ETA for Shakespeare was today. I have no idea. Didn't see that. Couldn't find it anywhere. So I don't know if you guys have suggestions of where. I always end up finding out after it's happened, and where do I find that information if it's not being, I feel like a lot of times there's this, everybody in New York knows these auditions are happening, everybody, and I don't, maybe I'm not looking in the right places.
Well, I know the Pioneer Valley has a theater newsletter, and I wonder.
And some of the theatres, I don't know whether you do, Jim, but some of the theatres have it on their website, auditions, jobs. They have to, I think, by law, say what jobs are available coming up. So I think checking websites is probably the best way to find out.
But it's unlike when I was coming up in New York, there was Backstage.
Right.
And if you wanted to audition, it was in Backstage. You had to buy one copy of it, and you knew everything that was happening, equity and non-equity. We just don't have that. And like Judy was saying, it'd be great if there was a group like Stage Source in Boston that ran auditions and put a newsletter out, but we're just not there yet.
It would be, there's the cap list in Albany.
Yeah.
And the Berkshires made their own list, which is just all the auditions, everything that's coming out. And I think it's run by one person who just, collects all the information. And the Berkshire Onstage blog, I'll put a plug in for there, they list auditions, they list openings, they list, and of course, reviews of all the shows that we can get out to review. But the best thing I found is just get yourself on a mailing list with the theater that you're interested in.
Yes.
The all information will come to you.
And that's what I'm on these lists. I don't know if there's a professional list that I'm not on or something like that, but.
Yeah, I think that's, it's a different, it's different for audiences
And even
and
digging
actors.
around on the websites, I found stuff and I look and I look and I look, but usually I'm finding it after it's already happened. And and I go to it. So they don't make it easy to find for people who aren't getting calls to their agents. So that's just a curious, maybe that's just me, I don't know, but I really.
No, I've had the same experience.
Okay, other questions? Yes?
In the playwrights, when we see a play and it's done, you go and everyone's done what they've done, but when you start it, how do you get the idea? And it may not, there may be multiple answers, and then when you're finished, or you kind of have it, and do you have in your mind how it's going to look, or is that you just tell the story and let someone else, how does that work? I have no clue, but I was curious if you have any, where do you start, and how do you interface with somebody who takes your story and produces it? Do you get to, any way you want to answer that or not is okay.
Well, sure. No, the second part is much easier to answer, which is that it's a collaborative art. So you can put down stage directions, you can put down your idea for a set, your ideas for lighting, and usually they'll get thrown out. And that's for the best, because then people are bringing their own thoughts to the production and things the playwright might never have thought of.
But you have that in your head when you're...
Right. And it's in your head when you write it, but it's like, I've worked on musicals and writing lyrics. You always have some melody that you invent in your head, but you give it to a composer and it's 1,000,000 times better. Somebody who knows what they're doing. So the first part about getting ideas, that's the hardest thing.
I think that you have to write about things that you're obsessed with, that you're passionate about, that are driving you crazy. You have to write from a place of really caring about the thing, because you're going to be spending probably more than a year, wrestling with this. 3 months if you're crazy fast, but maybe even 5 years. So it has to be a subject that you're consumed by. Something big like love or divorce or murder. But anyway, I just mentioned earlier. Yeah, they're close.
I like the progression.
Yeah, they're right. Yeah, you write about love in your 20s, you write about divorce in your 30s, and then I don't know.
You write about climate change.
But I actually mentioned this earlier tonight. I had an altercation with a neighbor 2 years ago that I am still so angry about. And that, I'm not just writing a play about that, I'm writing a damn TV show about that. Because I was this is fueled hours of, and it was 10 minutes. But I think you have to write about things that you're sort of obsessed with. Otherwise, who cares?
And I find an idea, sometimes it'll sit for a while. It may sit for a while, something interesting, I might read something really interesting, I'm huh. And I put it in a little file cabinet in my brain, and then something will happen to sort of activate it, and I'll start going with it. One of the huge joys, and Mark was talking about this, of writing a play is getting a good director to work on it, and getting good actors to work on it, and designers, and all of this, because it's like a child, and that child is going to grow up in all sorts of surprising and fascinating ways. And I always seem to find that what winds up happening is just bigger, deeper, richer than what I had in my own mind.
You see it at some level in your head.
Yeah, as I'm writing it, sure. Okay. Yeah, and then people take it and run with it and do all sorts of exciting, fascinating things.
Here's an example. So Anne and I are working on her play about Mozart's wife called Madame Mozart, the Lacrimosa, and it started out as a one-person show. And we messed around with it, and she did a lot of writing. Jim said, what if we think about it being a two-person show? What if there's another actor in the play? This wasn't Anne's idea, but we decided to try it because the solo character was playing basically all the men in her life as well as herself. And so now we've started the exploration of adding another actor into the mix, and it's like blowing the whole thing wide open in all amazing kinds of ways. And so this is, sort of like the slow process of something unfolding. So it's not like, I'm not going to do what you wrote down in your stage direction, I'm going to do it my way. It's really about, this is what my impulse is saying, what is your impulse saying? And how can we allow our impulses to grow together? And that's collaboration. That's what I started talking about at the beginning, because that collaborative instinct is kind of at the core of what we do. So people write plays knowing that that's going to be a step along the way to production, that it's an essential component of making theater.
And when you asked before, what do you look for in a collaborator? You look for somebody smarter than you. Seriously.
Yeah.
And especially in their field, you look for somebody that you can learn from.
Yeah. Peggy, I want to ask you, because you've worked on a bunch of new plays, how do you see the actor's job in that context? We're talking about design and writers and directors, but how does the actor feed into the development of a new work and bringing it to the stage?
I think what's this collaboration, number one, because you have to come into a process like that. You have to be open. If you come in closed and with no on your mind, you're doomed. Everybody's going to have to give a little. Everybody's going to have to just help the whole thing come together to tell the story, that you're on the right page. And as an actor, it's the most fun to get to create a part because you get to throw in stuff that you want to do. Sometimes the playwright goes, that's fantastic, and sometimes but it just depends. So, but it's great. It's just, there's nothing more exciting than working on a new play. There just absolutely isn't, because the possibilities are endless. And if everybody is open to what it can become, because you could start with this and it ends up, you just don't know where it's going to go. And if everybody's open to let's see what we can make, then it's the best experience in the world.
Mm-hmm. I know you and James worked together last summer on Off Peak. I don't know if anybody saw that. And you had the playwright with you for a little while.
She was great.
How much change did that script go through, or was it pretty much set at the time you got it? And
it was pretty much set.
Yeah.
I think maybe a little bit of tweaking went on when we were up in Williamstown rehearsing up there with Kevin, but on the whole it was pretty much already, it was published, and it was ready to go. I thought it was a beautiful piece of new work, which got its second production here, and I think will probably go on to all sorts of other theatres.
And the playwright was open. The playwright we had a few things that, even though it had been published, and that we said, this doesn't, and she was great.
Yeah, she was great.
Was fantastic.
And we sent little notes, that's right, we did send little notes backwards and forwards. She lives in Wellfleet.
And she came to us.
And she came, and we tried them out while she was there. It was terrific.
Great, wonderful, wonderful. Other questions? Yes.
Yes, can we hear from Mr. St. Germain what it was like to take his play to not just the Broadway stage, which I know he's done, but to a film? Is this the right place?
Well, I advise you to stick to playwriting. The wonderful thing about playwriting, it is collaborative. And so you do get a joy over that. And with playwriting, the playwright has certain rights that they have to approve a cast, they approve a director. And it's a whole different process In film, the person in charge is the director. They buy your script, and it's gone. Whether you are on set or not, there at least, I had one very good experience writing a film, and the director and I worked very closely, and it was terrific. And then you can have experiences where that doesn't happen. So, you know, I'm doing another play now, put it that way.
But I do want to put a plug in for an event that we're having on April 11th at the Triplex. That's a fundraiser for both us and the Triplex. Correct me if I'm wrong. A screening of Mark's film, of Mark's play, Freud's Last Session.
Starring Anthony Hopkins.
Yeah.
Get your tickets.
Mark will do a Q&A at the end of the film. He'll be grilled at the end of the film.
Yes.
So we've heard tonight there's such a great vibe in New York, and there's 100% employment, and there's nobody in the office not going employed. So now let's compare that to the Berkshires coming cheap. So now we come to the Berkshires, and we have to talk about the short seasons, and what's it like to perhaps not have enough work, and not have a long enough season, and what does it do to you and your expectations and goals?
Great question. Yeah. Anybody? I mean, I love the off season in the Berkshires. I really do. I love I burn firewood, and it's just in the winter. But the theater. This theater, even though we only present in the summer and we do these conversations and other developmental work all through the year, we're always working. We're always raising money. Tristan and I and Judy are always, all throughout the course of the year. But I love it here. Someone said earlier that they love New York and the energy in New York. I found with all the millions of people, and I don't want to knock New York, but all the millions of people in New York, it can be the loneliest place to live sometimes, and I experienced that myself. And it wasn't really until I found my community here in the Berkshires that I love going out and meeting people, whether it's Guido's or the co-op or wherever, just seeing everybody, and that's a joy for me, and being able to work with people. Did I answer your question okay? Okay. Yeah, that's my answer.
I wish there were more opportunities during the winter. I think here you have a crowd, and here Jim is having a series of conversations, and people are showing up for it. Barrington Stage does a 10 by 10 festival, which sells out every year, and that means there's an audience there. And it also, oddly, has a younger audience, a younger skewed audience. So, meaning under 70. No, I think I would love to see a year-round schedule of theater at different theaters.
It's tough for the actors.
Yeah.
Because, even if you're in New York City, you don't just stay in New York City and act. I mean, there's very few actors that get to just stay one place and work all the time. You're always having to go where the work is. But it's tough in the Berkshires because there's that dry spell. So most actors are working other places.
I think also there's an element of what is fulfilling for you. So finding your own moments of achievement. It's not necessarily having a full realized production and having the whole experience. Sometimes it's getting some actors in a room and just hearing your words, and maybe that is enough for you to feel like, okay, I did the thing. No, really and truly. And also, I just think you make your own opportunities. You create, you can't always, but if you're finding that you need to flex a certain muscle, you have that opportunity, certainly in the Berkshires or anywhere to get people in a room and create something.
Yeah.
Do you collaborate with other theater regions? I know you mentioned Pioneer Valley, and there's a handful of other, regions within an hour or 2 hours that have a lot of other, high concentrations of arts communities, so I'm just wondering what the relationship is with other regions.
I'll answer. I think I love collaboration, and I think it's a great way for theaters to share the expense and also the marketing, and not as much of the liability of a production from a producer standpoint. We're doing a production with Shakespeare and Company this summer, which we're very excited about. But I'm always looking to other theaters is there a play that we can do at both theaters or bounce back and forth? The Adams Theater up in Adams, Mass, we're talking to them about a production that might leave here and go up there. But it's a great way to think about theater in a collaborative way, and I hope we see more of it. But all the theaters up here, from Chester to even the Capital Region, the Bridge Street Theater over across and all, of course, the theaters in this area as well are part of that.
I keep hearing one word, collaboration, over and over, but I feel like the second word is evolution. That collaboration leads to the evolution of the script, leads to, or not, if it's handed over into a movie script. But those two things go hand in hand, and I think that we need to evolve with the times, and you guys are doing a great job.
Yeah, one of the collaborations we love is right here at St. James Place. We have our office here, but we produce up at Simon's Rock, but we love this place. We love having this as our home. And in fact, Sally and Fred Harris, who are sitting right here, built this place. And we're just, that's a collaboration. We love doing these things, and we want to do more of these collaborations with St. James Place and elsewhere.
And every theater, in my experience up here, we are all pulling for each other.
Mm-hmm.
When we hear that some theater's in trouble, it's not like, ha, more for us. Everybody is pulling for everybody in a serious way. So there's a lot of collaboration in that way of how can we help you? Want to co-pro something? What can we do? That's another great thing about this area is we're all on the same team. The better everybody does, the better we all do.
Kate.
It's actually a perfect segue. I was going to ask about audience. I mean, as an artist with a long relationship with the Berkshires, on and off, that there's so much more now here than there was 20 years ago is so exciting. I'm also noticing that the small theaters, like the theaters that have 99 seats or 150 seats are often full, but the larger houses are really struggling. Like,
it's all over the country.
It is, of course, all around the country. Yeah, but I'm wondering, and of course, there's a whole influx of people who came around COVID, like potential audience. But I just like, what can we do to get more people to come?
There's been this phenomenon everywhere that people have stopped subscribing to theaters. They just want to buy single tickets, and theaters who worked for years on a subscription model are really struggling. So, that's part of what's going on. I think people can stay home and watch the boob tube if they want, and COVID made that very easy. It takes an effort to go to the theater, and we hope you'll all make that effort because we love having you there, and it's a wonderful synergy. Yes?
I don't have an answer to that question, and this is actually not a question, but it hasn't come up in your discussion. Dan and I both adore the Berkshires and the welcoming we felt with Great Barrington, of course, and the theater, and so many other things. But did you know that the survey that came out from SMU this week about the most vibrant arts communities in the country, Massachusetts was the third state, but Pittsfield, which actually is the Berkshires because they were counting it as a medium-sized theater, was number one.
Wait, what? What is the study?
Pittsfield was named the top
Yeah.
arts vibrant city.
But by what study? What was the study
I
again?
think it's an SMU poll.
Okay.
That they do every
Martin
year.
knows.
I'm familiar with it.
Cool.
Southern Methodist University does the Data Arts Project every year, and they deal with the economic vibrancy of various communities. And for mid-sized cities, Pittsfield was number 1. In the past, it's been number 2 or 3. It's always really.
It beat out Santa Fe.
It's very cheap.
Wow.
Yeah, Santa Fe was number 2 this year.
Wow.
But they said a mid-sized city, which means they're counting the entire Berkshires.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it's 40,000.
It's very cheap to live in.
That's amazing.
Really?
Worry about the rental.
It is not cheap to live in Santa Fe.
Put that on the webpage.
That's actually a really cool, yeah, thank you.
You know, I wanted to, I don't know whether Judy's going to wrap, I just wanted to remind everybody that when we wrap here, which I think is going to be fairly soon, we have some wine and cheese and some really fun things to nibble on and a chance to
What's fun?
talk with each other and engage with the artists up here. Did you want to?
Yeah, I want to do 2 things before
Yeah.
we do that. Number 1, I'd like everybody who is a theater practitioner in the room to raise their hand, please.
Wow.
And number 2, I just want to go down the row and have everybody say what they're working on, or what, or if it, I know that almost all of you either have just done something or are about to do something this summer or soon. Go.
I'm starting again. All right. At the college, I'm doing You and the Moors now. At school, I'm also going to be working at Adirondack Theater Festival and hopefully also at the Public Theater here. So I have several shows coming up this summer.
Awesome. I have a world premiere called True Art, which is going to be at Dorset Theater Festival, directed by Michelle Joyner, this summer in August and September. I'm super excited. And my play Boca is having its 6th production in Fort Myers next year, and it's on their big stage, and that's really exciting. And I wrote a new play, and I'm going to hear it for the first time with my kind friends.
Nice.
Gentle friends.
Gentle friends.
Kindly gentle friends. I'm working on a commission with Great Barrington Public Theater on a piece called Madame Mozart, which is about Mozart's wife. We'll be workshopping it in May, and there will be 1 public performance with that.
I have a play premiering at Barrington Stage this summer, and it's called Forgiveness, and I'm working here on a new play about Ulysses S. Grant.
You're here.
I'm about to do a new world premiere of a Mark St. Germain play called Forgiveness at Barrington Stage this summer.
And I'm glad.
Well, I'm in the middle of my academic season, so I have a whole series of many dance pieces I'm working on right now. I'm about to go out of town and do a production of A Little Night Music in North Carolina, which I really actually don't have the time to do, but it's like a bucket list show of mine, so when I was offered it, it's an incredible musical. I've never done it before, so I don't really have time to light this show, but I'm going to. And then I'm doing a show at New Jersey Shakespeare, a show at Berkshire Theater Group, and then two shows here, and then I have a show somewhere else. Yeah. So yeah, don't be a lighting designer.
Next, A Body of Water by Lee Blessing at Shakespeare and Company. Big Big Sky by Tom Wells, which is an American premiere at Chester Theatre Company. And then in the fall, I'm doing Moon for the Misforgotten, which I'm thrilled about.
Where are you doing that?
Yeah, at the Majestic Theatre in West Springfield, where I've got a show, a new play, just opened.
Don't you have a play there right now?
I do, yes, I do.
What's that called?
It's called The Lady Slipper. Who asked that? Oh, yes. Oh, I do. Yeah, yes, it's a new play, and we had 2.5 weeks together, including tech, to get this new play up and running. And we're rewriting a bit as we go, and it will have another production soon with an added character. So I might be employed later in the year as well. I'm a lucky man.
And Jim, last but not least.
So Judy and I and Tristan have been, Tristan back in there, have been working really hard to announce our season, which is a 4-play season, which is going to be announced hopefully within the next week or so. The one play we can announce tonight is a really great family comedy called Survival of the Unfit. And that is going to be directed by Matthew Penn, and that will be in our middle slot up at Simon's Rock. And I've got a play called Flight of the Monarch that Judy is directing, that I wrote, that it'll be up at Shakespeare and Company in August. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for being here.